I've got A Wrinkle in Time, and I read the book as a kid, and I feel like a lot of people did, and I didn't feel one way or another towards it. Like, I know a lot of people felt really strongly that they loved it, and a lot of people felt really strongly that they hated it. I didn't really remember it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me either.
Yeah. So then I reread it as an adult because they were like, oh, this movie's coming out, and I was like, oh, might as well. It took like an afternoon to read at the most. And I had a few thoughts when I was reading it, and I was like, how the hell are they going to make this into a movie? And I do not remember this book being so Jesus-y.
Oh,
that's why. Sorry. That's why they were shoving it down my throat in the Christian school. They
That would
always
make
made
sense.
us all read it, and I refused to read it.
And like, it's not that over the head, like, Christian, but there's moments of it, and I was like, I totally missed this as a kid because I came up in I grew up in a very non-religious thing, or Jewish at the best, and it was like, and that it was not something I realized. So I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then they announced that the director would be Ava DuVernay, and I was like, okay, this film has a shot. She's an amazing filmmaker. She's very thoughtful. She's like super talented. Like this has a shot.
What has she done before?
She did Selma. She did 13th. Like she's a really good director. She's also done very serious works before. So it's interesting to see like how is she going to tackle a kid's book. So then they were like Reese Witherspoon, Mindy Kaling, and freaking Oprah are going to be in it. And I was like, all right, if you could get those three in, like, this can't be that. It's got a better shot. And there's a lot about the film translation I respect. And I think, like, visually it was kind of interesting. And Oprah's, like, 19 feet tall for most of the film. And I was like, I just assume this is Oprah's true form. Like, as a mortal, when you see Oprah, that's actually how tall she is. And real TV, like, shrinks her down at every telecast we watch. And so I think the book, like, they condense some of the bizarre storytelling in the book pretty nicely, like, particularly with, like, how they traveled, because it's about kind of interspace dimensional travel and other planets, and it's very odd. And I love the human characters too because it's played by your boy Chris Pine, Alicia's boy Chris Pine, who's her favy, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and Storm Reid. And I love that it was an interracial family as like the protagonist family, and it wasn't a big deal. It's just who they were, and they were scientists too. I was like, you know what? If anything, at least this film did that. At least this film portrayed. It's cool. It's okay to be a scientist. It's okay to be like nerdy. Like it's okay to come from a mixed family.
And the book came out in 1962 with 3 white witches and 3 white kids, and they diversified the film, which is excellent.
And admittedly, I don't particularly remember if they like explicitly say the misses are white, but they don't.
If you look at the cover of the book,
well, sure, but that's like the illustrator. but it's one of those things where it's just like, look, they took a stance and they're like, look, this is 2018. Like this is what this is what people look like today. Like that's just how it is. And I thought Storm Reid, who plays the main girl, was great. But there's another character called Charles Wallace who is very weird in the book and even weirder on screen, and he annoyed the crap out of me, and I'm so sorry because I know it's a little kid, and I know like there's only so much you could do.
He was supposed to, though. That was his role.
But in the book, he comes off as like kind of weird and cold, but like caring and like thoughtful, I think. And in this, he just seemed whiny, and I like it was much for me. It was like a little too much for me. Like so I thought they could have really like condensed down probably the first third of the movie. Like it's about a 2-hour movie, which for something aimed at like a younger audience, that's a little long. Sure. The second half I thought was like really intense. Like I don't know if it was just the theater we were in, it was just mixed really loud, but like when there's like a destruction scene and like a very actiony sequence, and I was like, this is kind of hurting my ears. Also, I'm getting old apparently. So I'm definitely not the audience for this film. Also, there's some like Sophie's Choice stuff at the end, and it was like a little intense. So I was like, who is this film aimed at? And thankfully, they tell you in the beginning because there's this nice little introduction from Ava DuVernay, and she's like, hey, this is kind of for the 11-year-olds out there, and then like the 11-year-old and you, would the 11-year-old you be proud of who you are today? And I was like, that's actually really interesting. Like, I like that question. I thought the movie has really good intentions. But that doesn't make it a necessarily super watchable film for me, at least. I know Alicia liked it a lot more than I did.
Loved it.
But that makes me happy, right? It's like I want a film like this to succeed, and I know I'm not the target audience for it, so I hope that like people do like it. They did tone down the Jesus-y stuff. It is not in spoiler alert. Sorry,
not at all.
And not that there's anything wrong with religion, but it's just like it's not what I wanted from this, and I want to be able to have a choice, and I like, especially in like a mainstream movie like this, it's nice to just be able to be like, hey, you can have faith and you can have whatever, but like there's nebulousness in the universe, believe what you want to believe. They swapped out Jesus for Hamilton, so I was like, all right, no problem.
Also, big ups to Zach Galifianakis for showing up. I didn't even know he was in the film.
Oh yeah, he and Michael Pena are also in the film. They have some like very bizarre parts.
Boy.
I was like, these are probably the weirdest parts in the book that translated to the film. And I was like, all right, you did a pretty good job. So because they asked an 11-year-old, they're like, oh, it's for 11-year-olds. I happened to be with one for the screening. So I was like, hey, what do you think? And her response, it was, anything fluffy. So I don't know if every 11-year-old is going to love this movie. I don't know if it succeeded on that level.
Well, and how delicious is that you thought it was a little dark for kids and the 11-year-old was like, no, over it.
I think it's dark for younger kids. Like, because, you're not going to just take 11-year-olds to see this movie. Yeah. But I'm like, I just don't know. I don't think it hit its target, but I really respect what it's trying to do. So, if you really love the book, and I just say some of the people with me like read the book and seem to like it as, a younger person and like the film. So, you give it a chance if you are a fan of A Wrinkle in Time. If you aren't, you're probably going to hate it anyway. I'm sorry to do this because, again, I wanted it to be better than it was. I'm only going to give it 2.5.
2.5 mohawks out of 5 for A Wrinkle in Time. All right, there you go.
Well, I give it 5 for effort. And they all looked great. There were so many sparkles in this movie.
Dude, cinematography, they'll probably win Best Oscar for
they
that,
will not.
I would
they
think.
absolutely will not. Not a chance. Oh, my God.
Will you give
Best
them
makeup, maybe, but like
Okay.
there's like a green screen scene where they're flying, and I was just like, I could have done this in my backyard. Like, Disney, you have $1 billion. Like, you can do better.
Do you think that this is going to take the most money at the box office and unseat Black Panther this week?
That is actually a really good question. They are throwing a lot of money behind this now. They hadn't been until for a while because I think they've been promoting Black Panther to the Olympics were happening, and they were like, and then they ABC broadcast the Academy Awards, so like it's still Disney. They're probably like, okay, we'll wait. But yeah, I think Black Panther's going to win like the global box office at least this week. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Now, you do have a movie you like.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What's it called?
It's called Thoroughbreds. It is on the opposite end of the spectrum from A Wrinkle in Time. It is not for kids at all. It is dark, and I really liked it, and I don't know what that says about me as a person.
You're terrible.
I probably. So it stars Anya Taylor-Joy, and she was in The Witch and Split. And Olivia Cooke from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and she's also going to be in Ready Player One. And also, it's one of Anton Yelchin's last films. He filmed it like right before he passed.
Yeah.
And he's really good at it too. And it's so upsetting. It's like, oh, you're such a anyway.
And it must have filmed years ago. He died like 2 years ago.
So they filmed it like right before. Like they wrapped, and then he passed away like 2 weeks later, I think.
Wow.
But it's not about Anton Yelchin. It's actually it's about the relationship between these two teen girls who live in like an upper class suburban Connecticut, which you think would be awful to watch. Except for it's also about them plotting a murder.
Oh,
it was really
it's
interesting.
like a bad guy, like a bad stepdad, right?
But it's like, how is he that bad? He's
no.
The film asks, is he that bad? Is he that bad, or are these kids that selfish? Or it's just one of those things where like the morality is in question, and like everything's hyperbolic as a teen, right? Like you're like, I hate everything. I'm going to kill you. You're the worst person in the world. Are they actually the worst person in the world? No, they're not. But this is about their sort of sense of, extremism and what's right and what's wrong. And I think what's extra interesting is one of the characters literally has no emotions. Like she's like, oh, I've been through several diagnoses, but really what it comes down to is like she just doesn't feel emotions.
Yeah.
She like has to work extra hard to kind of like fit in with people, or not even fit in well, but like talk to people even. So it was really interesting. It's Olivia Cooke's character. I thought she did such a good job just being
Be a great salesman.
She would be, but no, because you have to empathize with people this out, right? Like she just was like blunt and like, oh, I don't like you. You smell bad. This is, it was just like interesting watching them be kind of brutal and awful at each other, which is I think what teen girls probably sometimes actually are to each other, but wrapped up in very saccharine, like, oh my God, we're Mean Girls.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of Mean Girls, where like they're not being mean, they're just being honest, and because of that, it's a much more interesting relationship to watch. And it actually started out as a play, which I thought was really interesting. Like I don't think it ever got put on as a play, but because of that, the dialogue is very kind of theatrical, like play theater at theatrical. There's a lot of like good character stuff. It's kind of set in a constrained environment. It's set in this really creepy suburban house. I was like, damn, they got that down to a T. Like they got white suburbia, how like upper class Connecticut down to a T. So I actually thought it was like a really good movie. And there's just a lot of micro moments as like people that were really well captured. And ultimately because the characters are so bizarre and so honest and the circumstances are so weird, like I liked the film a lot. So I'm going to give it 3.8 out of 5.
Cool. Awesome. And it's called Thoroughbreds. I watched the trailer and it looks great. So I'm glad you liked it. I'll definitely go and rent it.
Fair enough.